Obviously, we are reacting to a lot of news today. We've spent the morning working very hard to get you the latest in this Big 12 expansion story. As you know, it is now just a formality. The presidents of the Big 12 late last night voted to extend an offer to Colorado. So we told you on the show yesterday, that is simply a formality. And you look at this situation with Colorado and the Pac-12, I think the biggest question, without a doubt, the biggest question here, how did this happen again in the Pac-12? Because this is not the first time. It is the second time. And a disastrous tenure now for George Kliavkoff continues. And you look at how this went down. Our sources told us that Colorado was on board, and Phil DiStefano as much said this last week. Hey, we're going to wait for the TV deal. We are in this conference. All of the 10 members are united in waiting for this number that was supposed to be delivered a week ago today in a call with all of the leadership of the Pac-12. George Kliavkoff was supposed to deliver a TV deal and a number for consideration in that meeting. Not only was there no number, there was no TV deal. And I am told the tipping point for Colorado and several other members of this conference was that there's no path forward and no deal close. And one of the leading instigators from our sources in trying to keep everybody together had been Kirk Schultz, who stepped in as soon as George had some flubs and had some moments on this call where several of the presidents were frustrated. Kirk Schultz tried to step in. He was loudly interrupted. That moment in time is where I am told Colorado made the decision to put their foot on the gas and take the exit ramp to the Big 12. And the hardest part of all of this is we got a report last week from Heather Dinich at ESPN that chapter and verse quoted Kirk Schultz. And I am told that that report and Kirk Schultz's continuing discussions and public commenting about a deal being imminent and close, and we are going to be on par, if not better than the Big 12, continued to rub presidents the wrong way. He was asked, according to my sources, several times not to speak publicly, which, if you remember, he didn't speak. Nobody spoke for several weeks. And then Kirk Schultz, the words that were used to me were, could not help himself, and spoke publicly and really grinded some people out when he was chastised for that. He went to Heather Dinich at ESPN and used just about the exact same language he's used for months now, and people saw right through it. That's the moment that Colorado, and I think several others who we're going to get to in a minute, Jake, decided to leave this conference. And ultimately, sure, Kirk Schultz is going to have a role in this novel, because I think the 30 for 30 on the collapse of the Pac-12 is going to be epic. But I don't think there's any question at this point in time, almost unequivocally, that this is on George Kliavkoff. He came to a meeting that he was pressured to call last week with no numbers and no deal and no avenue to a deal. And Jake, I think that's why Colorado is joining the Big 12 today.
Yeah, and I think that you can't show up to meetings with nothing as a commissioner. I mean, as a commissioner, it's a general baseline that you will have a heading or a direction with where you want your conference to go, and that's kind of the problem for George, is that it doesn't ever seem like there's a direction or a path or a heading that he wants to take the conference, and I don't buy any of this nonsense coming out in reports and in news that that they had no idea or that they are somehow surprised. Like, if you were surprised by Colorado's departure, then it just confirms what we think of you already, which is you're not a great commissioner for the Pac-12. And yeah, I mean, I've been saying, and we've been saying on this show for how long, probably 6 months at least, maybe longer, that George Kliavkoff is not helping to keep this conference alive and afloat. His actions, generally speaking, further the downward trend of the Pac-12, because he's just not bringing them any sort of solution or positivity or any kind of actionable item that allows them to make progress. when you compare them to other conferences or even just in their situation. So yeah, I do think, right now, in the immediate past, the last week or so, yeah, I think Colorado's departure is on George. But I think when we look at the last 10 months, like, George has had ample opportunity to bring a TV deal forth and hasn't done it. And we can sit here and buy into the excuses, I guess, from George Kliavkoff, which are, hey, if I thought, these presidents would have liked this deal or that deal, I would have brought it to them. If I knew that someone was leaving, I'd rush to, hurry up and get this deal done. Like all these different angles that he's trying to play. And the simple truth is that you've never had a deal that was robust or complete enough to present to the presidents because you're not capable of getting one, in my opinion. Your product is not good enough, right? Overall, it's not relevant enough. B, because you turned down the merger with the Big 12 that Fox and ESPN proposed, that puts you in a really poor negotiating position. And then C, I just look at the conference overall, and when you look at the conference compared to other conferences right now, it's very clear that their reputation and their image is negative. So it basically would be, I'm not going to say impossible, but it would be very difficult right now for the Pac-12 to get a TV deal that's on par with the Big 12 even. It would be incredibly difficult, and that's because of what George has done or really not done. So, yeah, I think Colorado's departure, yeah, it is on George. There's a good portion of it that's on George. But I think, ultimately, like this has been something that's been building over, a long period of time. And
but I also think it's interesting that you bring up Pac-12 expansion, because what I find fascinating is people do not recognize that San Diego State may well not be an option for the Pac-12 because it's no longer $17 million, which San Diego State couldn't afford to pay as an exit fee.
Mm-hmm.
It's now $34 million if they want to join the conference next year. So you really are down. And I think if this conference expands, and I am not convinced that it will, I think they will try. And I am told that a meeting in the Pac-12 is going to kick off here in less than an hour now. But I think if you want to add San Diego State, I think that's going to cost the Pac-12 a ton of money. And my biggest question is, can you expand without San Diego State? And can you add SMU and Fresno State, or SMU and Boise, or I don't know. But again, everybody keeps talking about Mountain West teams. Dude, do you want to leave the conference now? That's $34 million.
Yep.
Who in the Mountain West has that kind of money? SMU? I mean, you look at SMU, that may be an option. Tulane, that may be an option. But you're really in a position where you went past a deadline, and now it's coming back to bite you. And the one thing I'll say I disagree with you on, I don't think George Kliavkoff had any idea this was coming from Colorado. I don't think anybody on the executive committee, I don't think any of the presidents, I don't think any of them knew that Colorado was going to act so quickly. I don't think any of them knew that, and even as contentious and frustrating, and contentious is probably strong, but last Thursday, that meeting there was clear frustration voiced and demonstrated from all corners of the remaining 10 schools in this conference. To have no idea, and the very idea that George Kliavkoff did not reach out to Phil DiStefano, and that you allowed Colorado and Rick George to take these steps unbeknownst to your own self, is grounds for termination. And this is not the first time. And it's not even that this is Colorado leaving. It's not even that it's USC and UCLA. It's not even that you don't have a TV deal. Go back to that, Pac-12, ACC, Big Ten thing that they tried to do, the alliance. What is that? What fruit has that bore out?
Mm-hmm.
Not financial, not scheduling. Like you haven't really realized anything that George Kliavkoff has set out to do. And it's shocking to me that here we sit today and you have no angle, you have no avenue, you have no way to save yourself now. And listen, I understand it. People are going to say, oh, well, they're going to expand. And, John Canzano being an absolute jackwagon, talking about how they can upgrade from Colorado.
Trade up.
How are you going to upgrade from Colorado? You don't have a P5 option. San Diego State's $34 million. Let's say they add San Diego State. Who's paying that bill? Who's paying that $34 million? By the way, if you're in negotiations with the Pac-12 on a TV deal, didn't your price just go way down? Didn't the value of this conference just go way down? Because now they are a wounded duck. They can't fly. You're going to pay less for that. You are going to lower your offer to the Pac-12. And it's remarkable to me, the malfeasance that this conference has been managed under for the last decade plus.
And I've always been surprised by the concept of, hey, nobody saw Colorado acting this fast or quickly or in the manner with which they have here. Have they really acted this fast? Like, have they?
Oh,
really?
I think they did.
I disagree.
I think Colorado. Look at the timeline.
Yeah.
They spent 10 months flirting with the Big 12. 10 months. They said our sources told us that Colorado told Brett Yormark and his team, we need to put the brakes on this because about a month ago, 3 weeks ago-ish now, all the presidents got together and agreed that they were going to wait. They told George Kliavkoff, we're going to give you until kickoff to get this deal done, to deliver it, signed, sealed, and delivered by kickoff of the season. I've been told that by multiple sources. The problem is you came to that meeting last Thursday with no action, no money, because you didn't have a deal and you don't have an avenue to a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so last Thursday night, I was told point blank by a source today, last Thursday night, Colorado said, we're done. That was a breaking point, not on the call. They got off the call and privately amongst their leadership said, we're done.
Pack everything up. We're out of here.
We're done. That's why Rick George left Pac-12 Media Day so quickly.
Yeah.
You knew there was trouble. So when you say that it wasn't quick, I think it was very quick.
I just mean in the parlance of the conversation. Dude, the conference has been building to a negative result for quite some time. I mean, again, we can all sit here.
I would agree with that.
And everybody can, and I love how, respectfully, all these guys who are Pac-12, supporters and make a living on the Pac-12 want to sit here and talk about how the conference is going to trade up and they're so surprised by this and, oh my goodness, I'm not surprised by this. Again, everyone wants to say, oh, well, you got to have a TV deal by then or you got to get it done by this deadline. You can't let free agents evaluate the market and go unchecked for over a year at a time.
That's right.
Dude, if you give people options, they will evaluate their options and say, have a nice day, we're going to go make more money. Why would they not? Right? So to me, yeah, sure, did the actual action of Colorado saying we're done happen in a quick fashion? Yes, it happened in a quick fashion. It was a reaction to an embarrassing conference call with George Kliavkoff which they were frustrated with, and they said, we're out, we're done, we're moving along here. But this has been building. Why did they have that reaction? Because call after call, meeting after meeting, expectation after expectation was set that you would have a media deal. Remember, let's not forget, and I like to remind people of this, the original number was $50 million a year. We're going to be third among the P5. We're going to have $50 million a year.
And we
you can't
heard
even
that.
break 20.
We heard that on multiple fronts across Pac-12 media. And whether it was in Eugene on their radio stations, whether it was in Salt Lake City on the Utah Utes radio station, I mean, to a man, every one of these universities, $50 million, $50 million. And George Kliavkoff, to his credit, had the balls to go out and ask for that money because he was never getting that. But I want to share a picture that Scotty and a bunch of guys on Twitter sent me from the Colorado Board of Regents meeting that is happening right now. And you'll notice Chancellor DiStefano and Rick George are at the top center of that.
Uh-huh.
So this is going down. I mean, this is happening right now.
Yeah.
And I think once that's over, I don't think, by the way, it's any coincidence that the Pac-12 scheduled their call for when this meeting is over, when it's scheduled to end. And I just again want to tell you, this did not have to happen. It is completely self-inflicted damage. 100%. George Kliavkoff did not only not upgrade Larry Scott, I believe he backslid from Larry Scott. I think that George Kliavkoff has done more irreparable harm to this league with whether it's his comments, his inability to speak in public, his inability to do interviews. I mean, he just he ain't that guy. He's not him.
Yeah.
And none of this had to happen. But the other thing I think we need to really talk about, and I think this might be the most important part of this conversation, what is next for Oregon and Washington? Because we have talked about this ad nauseum now. Losing Colorado is not a death knell, but what does Colorado's exit from the conference do? Leaves you at 9 teams with no clear path to expand. So if you're at 9 teams and you know that the college football playoff bowl allocations are not official and are not sealed, signed, and delivered, like, hey, conference champions of the Pac-12 are going to get a spot. You haven't heard that. And one of the things that's very interesting here is if you're a 9-team conference, do you have a conference championship game? Because there's a lot of thinking, and anybody that's a Big 12 fan knows this exact conversation. Why did the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship go away? Because you didn't have 10 teams. And so the question is, do you have a conference championship game? By the way, do you have the respect and attention of the rest of the college football world when you only have 9 teams? And my answer would be, well, probably not. Oh, by the way, do you have the ability to schedule? Because if you're only going to play 9 different teams in your conference, don't you have to add a marquee P5 out-of-conference game to your schedule? That's an awfully difficult place to be when a lot of people's opinion are if you only have 9 teams, you are no longer going to be respected as a P5 conference. Whether that ever comes to fruition in reality, I don't know. But if you only have 9 teams and none of them are USC and UCLA, you're in real trouble here. And I think for certain, Oregon and Washington recognize that. I am also told for certain that they are talking to a lot of different people in their institutions. I am told that they do, in fact, have calls scheduled with the Big 12. Those have not happened yet. They do not have action currently scheduled with the Big 10. The Big 10 has stayed way out of this over the last 24 hours from my sourcing. I think at some point that has to change. I don't know, but I think it is really interesting that you are losing Colorado now. And Washington and Oregon have to act. Utah has to act. Because if you don't act, I firmly believe, from what I understand, I firmly believe this conference becomes irrelevant if they stay at 9. And it's going to be very difficult for anybody left in this 9-team conference, Jake, to compete for a spot in the college football playoff. And I think that's absolutely a death knell.
Yeah, well, hasn't it already been tough for the Pac-12 to compete in the college football playoff? I mean, if we're being honest, hasn't the conference already struggled to represent itself well in the college football playoff? And I know it expands next year, right? The format's changing. There's a lot more opportunity. You know, if we weren't going through this in the Pac-12, it'd be easy to say, hey, yeah, they're going to have good representation, probably 2-3 teams there. Like, totally understand and buy into that, and I don't even disagree. But the reality of the situation is yeah, I mean, if you're other conference heads, if you're other conference leadership and you're looking out west at the Pac-12, isn't it just a matter of time? Like, let's say that, hey, Colorado leaves, one more school probably goes with them. Who knows who that's going to be? And you're at 8 teams and you expand and you find your way back to 9, right? At that point, aren't we just delaying the inevitable? Right? Aren't we just saying, okay, yeah, you found a way to survive for now?
Breaking news for you out of Boulder. It is official. Colorado Board of Regents votes unanimously to leave the Pac-12 and accept the offer from the Big 12 to start playing the conference less than a year from now. July 1st of 2024, the Colorado Buffaloes will join the Big 12. It is done. That is remarkable. And it's, to me, this is where now things are about to roll downhill. Yeah. We're about to find out how loyal a hungry dog really is.
Yeah.
because I think I think Arizona is likely the next domino, and I think you need to keep a very close eye on Oregon and Washington, because I think this conference's viability is now in question, in real serious question.
Yeah.
I just, how do you continue with only 9 teams?
Well, if you're another team, like if you're Arizona, Oregon, Washington, Utah, like any of these nameplates in the Pac-12, athletically speaking, if you're
not to interrupt you again, a source very close to Arizona says the Arizona Board of Regents stands ready to act early next week after a call last night with all involved principals from ASU and Arizona. So the Arizona Board of Regents, which, by the way, again, I think this is an important detail. The Arizona Board of Regents manages essentially Arizona and Arizona State. And their past history is a little murky, but most people believe that Arizona and Arizona State can act as separate entities. The Arizona Board of Regents has made it very clear they do not want them to do that. And when there were suggestions that Arizona would leave for the Big 12 because ASU wants to stay, the Arizona Board of Regents told us, a source at the Board of Regents told us, that they would do everything that they could do to make it difficult financially for Arizona to do that. So it's going to be interesting now, and I want to make sure that I read that chapter and verse. Arizona Board of Regents stands ready to act early next week after a call last night with all principals involved from Arizona and Arizona State. So, it's over. It's over. I would be surprised if the Pac-12 doesn't lose at least 4 teams. At least 4 teams. And I'd be really surprised if the Big Ten did not get involved with Oregon and Washington.
I just think the opportunity's ringing.
I'd be really surprised if and by the way, I reached out to our Utah sources today, and they had nothing to say. Nothing to say today. And I think it's going to be very interesting now to find out who's really loyal to this conference. How much does academic money mean? Because I'm not sure it means that much. I am not sure it means that much.
Well, and I think if you're able to keep your relationships together academically, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is my point yesterday on the show, for all of you who listened yesterday, right? You remember me saying, hey, if it's Oregon, Washington, Stanford, and Cal that go to the Big Ten, let's say,
yes,
your relationship there still stays intact. Remember that old saying? Remember 6 months ago when the hot nomenclature was pods of schools would go to different conferences?
Yes.
So that's where this comes into play. Hey, the pods of schools, Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Cal, and their academics are going to move together because, I don't know, what was it, Stanford, I think you said, just publicly let it be known that they made like $12 billion in the last quarter or whatever it was, like some ridiculous number. So, like, athletic money is pennies on the dollar for these schools. You need to keep that in mind. But the academic money is what truly matters, and that's why they want to move together.
Another text comes in that says the Big 12 will make an announcement making it official with Colorado within moments. So this is going to move very quickly.
Yeah.
So this was, and I think we told you this last night on the show, that this was a formality. This was absolutely a formality. There was, I don't think that there was ever going to be a question about this, and it's a huge day. You are experiencing something we've never seen like this before.
Yeah.
Absolute betrayal. Absolute betrayal from a single entity that could bring down an entire conference.
Facts.
I don't know that we've
That's not an exaggeration.
I don't think we've ever seen that before.
Yeah.
I really don't. It'll be very interesting to me. Who's the next one to go? I have to think it's Arizona. Now that the Board of Regents is waiting and ready, and I think it has to be. It has to be Arizona because it makes no sense. Again, with a 9-team league, this league is dead in basketball. The Pac-12 has not been relevant in basketball for several years. This Bronny James situation at USC told you how powerful USC is as a basketball entity in this league. They're gone. UCLA's gone. What incentive does Arizona have to stay in the Pac-12? I don't see any incentive. I have to believe that they are the next to go.
Yeah, I mean, it only makes sense, and that's why I say, like, again, it's this whole concept of, hey, it's started now. The door is open. So if you're one of these schools that was on the fence about, hey, are we going to stay? Are we really going to take this whole moving conference thing seriously? Well, hey, you've got the folks at Colorado who took it very seriously. They've moved. Hey, you got the folks at Arizona who potentially are taking it very seriously and are going to move. Who else is going to go along with that movement? Because again, I can't deny the concept of these schools talk to these conferences. You can't tell me Tony Petitti hasn't talked to Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Cal.
Yeah, he has. By the way, Ross Dellinger and just about every other voice is now saying that the Big 12 is expected to make a statement announcing the arrival of Colorado. So
there you go.
I mean, now it's been picked up everywhere. What an amazing day! I don't know what you do. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you do if you are the mouthpieces in this conference. This is a very dark day because there is no coming back from this. Athletic Director Rick George and Phil DiStefano have released a statement that says, after careful thought and consideration, it was determined that a switch in conference would give CU Boulder the stability and resources and exposure necessary for long-term future success in a college athletic environment that is constantly evolving. Whoa.
Wow, that is a shot, dude.
That is a punch in the face of the Pac-12. And, I mean, just think about what that statement means. Give CU Boulder stability, resources, and exposure necessary for long-term future success. So you were not getting stability, resources, or exposure. And what do we always say about reach?
Hey.
Reach equals money. And when you don't have reach, a TV deal, you're not going to make money.
It's truth.
That is a punch in the face. The Big 12's national reach, there's that word again, across 3 time zones, as well as our shared creative vision for the future, we feel makes it an excellent fit for CU Boulder, our students, faculty, and alumni. These decisions are never easy. We have valued our 12 years as a proud member of the Pac-12 Conference. We look forward to achieving new goals while embarking on this exciting next era as members of the Big 12 Conference. Wow, that is the public statement from Colorado, as it is now official that Colorado is joining the Big 12. The Colorado Board of Regents votes unanimously to authorize it, and this is historic.
Yeah, and I think
it's incredible.
I think there's a couple lines in there that really speak to their frustration.
Yes,
I think that talking about opportunity, talking about long-term viability as the college athletic environment is constantly evolving. Yeah, the English and basic version of that is, hey, college athletics are always changing, always evolving. The TV landscape is always evolving, and we trust Brett Yormark more to handle the business ops of an evolving marketplace. And why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? The guy's been on the job a year and has done a remarkable job. Now, it's only been a year. Who the hell knows where he's at in 5? But so far, it's been pretty good. And that's why I say it just isn't – this is not hard to understand. Logically speaking, it's not hard to understand why Arizona would want to be in the Big 12. Not hard to understand why Washington and Oregon are concerned about being trapped in a Pac-12 conference that's not nationally respected and limits their ability to get to the college football playoff. I mean, that's not hard to understand. So for me – again, now that this is official, I have no problem saying the door is open and choices are it's now time to make choices. Like Utah, it's time to make your choice, right? Oregon, Washington, it's time to make a choice.
Yep. And now thank you to Chris Karn, our great Chicago Bears fan, who tweeted me the statement from the Big 12. It is short. It is sweet. It is Michael Jordan-esque. Irving, Texas. The following statement released today by the Big 12 Conference through its commissioner, Brett Yormark, regarding the University of Colorado. Quote, they're back.
Well
End
played.
quote. That's the entirety of the statement.
That's what I love about this guy. Like, can I just slurp Brett Yormark for a second? That's what I love about this dude. This is so on point. We're not going to release a novel about Colorado, right? Everything that needs to be said is already being said. So all we're going to do is say 2 words, and that's it, because that says everything that needs to be said. Cold-blooded, clean, methodical, and thorough.
Yes.
Business ops out of Brett Yormark. It's that simple.
I know I keep saying this, you guys, but I'm stunned. I can't believe the Pac-12 is on the verge of collapse.
It's incredible.
They should never have been here. I don't even know what you say about that. This breaking news is brought to you by our good friends at Super Chicks in Ogden on Riverdale Road, and their store in St. George as well. You guys, you know Super Chicks is the best chicken sandwich in the business. All of their produce is always fresh, chopped in-house every single day, as are their French fries. They make their custard in-house every day. The best shakes, the best sandwiches. Go in there, get it deluxe. Tell them you heard about it on the Monty Show. It is Super Chicks in Ogden on Riverdale Road, as well as in St. George. I'm telling you, if you have not been to Super Chicks, you are missing out. There is no other sandwich. There is only Super Chicks. Colorado is going to the Big 12. It is official. The Board of Regents votes unanimously to leave the Pac-12 and join the Big 12. And again, the Big 12 has released a statement simply saying, quote unquote, they're back. And
incredible.
It's a historic day. Let's get your comments in here. Zach Sloter says, hi, guys. Let's say the Big 12 added Oregon State, ASU, Arizona, and Colorado. Could you see them adding Utah and UConn to be the numbers even? Go Cyclones. I don't think balanced conferences are more important than quality conferences.
Right.
So we can sit here and we can talk about Oregon State. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Oregon State, because I do think they are the sleeper. But as I said today, I am told that absolutely Oregon and Washington are expected to later tonight or first thing tomorrow talk to Brett Yormark and his team at the Big 12. That would be an unbelievable raid. It would, if Oregon and or Washington end up in the Big 12, my God, that would be apocalyptic. It would be
like death knell.
It would be unreal.
Cold-blooded, clean, methodical, and thorough.
If that were to happen, it is more impactful to the health of the conference than even Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12.
Agreed.
I mean, it would absolutely, this conference would be done. It would be over.
Well, and I think if the Big 12 were to add Oregon and Washington, I think we got to start talking about whether the Big 12 has surpassed the Big 10 or not. Because at that point, revenue-wise, certainly they haven't. But on the football field, I think there's no getting around it.
Yeah.
That the Big 12 is superior.
Yep. Harry Austin gives us $15 to say, here's a thought. Any chance we can end up, what's that?
No, go ahead.
Any chance we can end up with a Pac-12 Big 12 merger? However, it will be the Big 12 taking all the Pac-12 teams. I mean, it's a possibility.
I mean, merger is the word you want to use. I mean, they're not merging anything, clearly. I mean, that's not going to happen. They will take teams. They're not merging.
There is clearly an issue with Washington State. That's the one university where they're radioactive, in my opinion. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard how far in the athletic budget hole they are. Again, the Nick Rolovich lawsuit, the mismanagement of the budget, in some people's opinion, at Washington State. Kurt Schultz is just not well respected on his own campus, I am told. I mean, you had a faculty revolt essentially a month ago now. I mean, they have real foundational issues at Washington State. I can't imagine a like-for-like lock, stock, and barrel merger where all the Pac-12 teams go to the Big 12.
No way.
I just cannot see that happening. I think it's far more likely that the Big 12 takes 4 Pac-12 teams. I don't know why. I mean, if you went to 18 teams, I think that'd be the maximum.
Yeah.
But if you took 6 teams out of this conference, I think the remaining teams or universities, excuse me, to end up in the Mountain West. I mean, that to me is the only logical merger scenario.
Right.
I think Brett Yormark he's in the driver's seat here.
Yeah.
I think that George Kliavkoff is managing his last moments as commissioner of the Pac-12, whether the conference dies or he gets terminated. I don't know how this guy still has a job. He's not made you money. He's not improved your contract with your TV partners. In fact, he's damaged your relationship by some accounts, in some people's opinions, with the TV partners. You haven't expanded your footprint. You have lost now 3 schools completely blind. You had no idea this was happening. I mean, it's a fairly hefty indictment on the incompetence of Brett Yormark. So, I mean, sure, Harry, that could happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it is highly unlikely in my opinion.
I just don't think Brett Yormark and company have any incentive to merge. Why would you acquiesce now? I mean, you quite literally have suffocated this conference. Brett Yormark has been patient as they come, right? He has been just on point with how patient he's been, and that's allowed him to start making deals like this, right? Because you've allowed these schools to go through their process, and you've been the guy, right? And all my sales guys out there know this concept. If you're going to act thirsty with your clients, they're never going to work with you. And what has Brett Yormark done? He said, hey, we're going to let this situation play out.
Yeah.
But while this is playing out, hey, we're going to do Rucker Park. We're going to do Mexico City.
Yeah.
We're going to do all this great stuff and just continue building our brand. And once they come calling, once they're frustrated enough to reach out, then we will execute. And that's where we are right now on the timeline.
Yeah, and I truly think that you're just in a position now where Brett's got to be aggressive. If you're the Big 12, you've got to put your foot on the gas pedal, and you have got to get what you can get right here, which is why I believe that the Big 10 will act here. Mm-hmm. I think the Big 10 has to act. There's too much equity in Stanford, Cal, Washington, and Oregon not to at least explore it. Knowing the legwork that you've done, knowing the effort you've put in to fund that move, now there's no longer, hey, we're getting rated by the big, bad, awful Big 10.
Yeah, that's over.
That's all over with. Deion Sanders wears that crown in the Pac-12 now, right? So I don't see any way that Brett Yormark doesn't make more advances. I don't see any way that the Big 10 does not come in here and try to grab more property and more footprint, because Brett's talked all along, and look what the Colorado statement said. 3 time zones.
Yes.
3. Specifically, Phil DiStefano said 3 time zones. They're going to add the Pacific time zone.
Yep.
And whether that is Gonzaga, whether that is Oregon State, the Arizonas, they're going to add the Pacific time zone. There is no question about that. And it's simply a matter of who's going to be in the Pacific time zone. Because, by the way, Oregon, Eugene, and Washington, Seattle, they're in the Pacific time zone. So you can not only add, you can control the Pacific time zone. If you can get Oregon, Washington, if you can get, hey, listen, Gonzaga, Arizona State, great. Leave the rest to fend for themselves. That's not your concern here. And if I'm Brett Yormark, I am not concerned about the way this looks. I am not concerned about what people think of this conference at all. I am telling you right now, you have to do what's best for the long-term health of this conference by not making the same mistake the Pac-12 made, by not crushing your opponent. Take your foot and put it on George Kliavkoff's throat.
Yep.
And choke him out.
Yep.
Because it's over.
I agree.
You have a chance to end that conference. And I don't care if they had San Diego State, Fresno State, your mom's sewing circle. It doesn't matter. As soon as they lose one more member, it's over.
Facts.
It's done. Nobody's hanging out in an 8-team conference that can't afford to subsidize San Diego State coming into the conference.
Yeah.
It's over. And if I am the Big 12, the perfect plan for me is I am adding Colorado, Arizona, Utah, and if I can get Oregon and Washington, absolutely. But I'm adding Colorado, Arizona, Utah, and Oregon State. I'm adding those 4 teams. And hey, if Oregon and Washington and absolutely Stanford and Cal want to come along for the ride, let's do this thing, dude.
Yeah.
But at a minimum, I am not a believer in Arizona State. We have talked about this. If you're new to the show, and I see a lot of new people here, please make sure you give us a thumbs up. Hit the like button. If you are not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to the show. Arizona State's a problem.
Yeah.
And I know that, hey, everybody is like, oh, but Monty, it's Arizona State. What does that mean?
Dilly dilly.
What does that mean? Because by Ray Anderson, they're horrendous, incompetent, Kliavkoff type athletic director, Ray Anderson in Arizona State. He said, yeah, we're a top 15 team. That's who we are. That's who you are, really. Meanwhile, I've got Bobby Robbins down in Tucson talking about, Arizona, and that they're a basket. The thing he enjoys about the Big 12 is they're a basketball powerhouse.
Which they are.
Well, Arizona knows who they are and where they are, and they certainly know they're not a football school, with all due respect to Jed Fish.
Yeah.
Do you think Arizona State has a value right now as a wounded dog coming out of what's going to be significant sanctions? And do you think that guys like Kenny Dillingham are thrilled to have the job at Arizona State? Staying in the PAC-8? Is that exciting? Because it's not. Do you think Dan Lanning signed this massive contract extension at Oregon today? Did you guys hear about this? A $45 million extension, essentially doubled his pay to $7 million a season. A $20 million buyout that Lanning will owe the school personally, and it's fully guaranteed. You think they pay guys like that to be in the PAC-8?
Pac-10.
You think Oregon's just hanging out? No, they're not. They're not.
And do you think Dan Lanning is signing that if he's just chilling in the PAC-8? Come on.
If he doesn't have a plan, I don't think so.
Dude.
And I just go back to Arizona State versus Oregon versus whoever. Arizona State doesn't win. Arizona State doesn't pull. Arizona is a brand. What is the brand of Arizona State athletics?
Problem child.
No, it's Pat Tillman.
Wow.
It's Pat Tillman. And with Pat Tillman, you get a legend. But why is he a legend? Because he walked away from an NFL contract to go give his life for our freedom. Not because Arizona State in their football program, and did he excel at Arizona State? He did. Did it lead him to the NFL? It did. But you're not an athletic powerhouse. You're not a baseball powerhouse. You know what you are? You're a hockey powerhouse. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, it's true.
The hockey program is arguably the best part of Arizona State athletics. And if you think I'm joking, go check it out. Go check out their brand new hockey arena. Go check out their brand new training facility. Because it's not a brand new basketball facility. They have a renovated Sun Devil Stadium, but their facilities aren't, second to none.
Yeah.
Arizona State has always been overvalued. They're overvalued now, and you know who overvalues them more than anybody else? Fucking Arizona State overvalues Arizona State more than anybody else.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm telling you, the must-haves in this wounded duck of a Pac-12, the must-haves, Oregon and Washington. Full stop athletically. Add Stanford and Cal, they print money academically. Add them if you can add them. But if we're being realistic for the Big 12, the must-haves in this conference, you got Deion. Now you got to have Arizona. Then you got to have Utah. And I think you got to have Gonzaga. Those are the ones that you must have. If you can get Oregon State, do it.
Fast.
But if we're playing the realistic game, sorry, man, Arizona State's not a must-have.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I view Arizona State, and I think your point about Pat Tillman is spot on. No question about that. But in recent memory, the last 2 years, I view them as a problem child. I mean, whether it's Herm Edwards, you look at all the issues, the lack of success. I mean, again, if I'm Brett Yormark, the only thing that I have to avoid here in expansion and in realignment is misstepping in expanding my conference. I can't make a mistake expanding the conference. Because if he nails this, if he gets premier brand after premier brand out of the Pac-12 or Pac-10 or Pac-8 or Pac-0, whatever it winds up being, if he can go out and get those value brands, dude, the Big 12 is poised, primed, in a perfect and ideal situation to go out over the next decade and have a bunch of success. And I'm not sitting here saying that success will take them above the SEC and make them number. I'm not saying any of that, because I don't think the Big Ten cares necessarily about beating the SEC. I think the Big 12 cares about beating the SEC. I think the Big 12 cares about just continuing to grow. Just whether if our growth surpasses the Big Ten or the SEC, great. That's awesome. We would love that. But ultimately, all we want to do is go up and to the right. And every year at Media Day, what do we want to do? We want to celebrate the brand. We basically want to have a party. We want it to be ultra positive.
That's right.
That's all he cares about.
That's right.
And if he gets this right, every year for the next 5 years at least, he's going to be in a position to celebrate his conference. And I think that's why this is such a historic time, not just because the PAC's at risk of dying, right? It's not just about that. It's about, hey, who's springboarding forward? Who's the one that's going to get launched? Who's the one that's going to say, hey, because of all those nasty decisions we made and all the hard stuff we did, man, we've gone way farther forward. And that's what I think we can't forget.
Woo!
Damn.
How about that for the first 50 minutes of the show? Okay, let's play the same game we played yesterday.
Yeah.
If we can get to 21,000 subscribers by the end of the show, we'll give away a PlayStation 5.
What are we at right now?
We are at 20,107. There
Okay.
are 2,060 people watching the show.
Incredible.
So if we get to 21,000 subscribers, and I will even say, if we get to 21,000 subscribers in the next hour and 10 minutes, we'll give away a PlayStation, and then we'll give away a $100 gift card to Amazon.
Yeah.
So let's go. If you are here and you are not a subscriber, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Absolutely give us a thumbs up. Let's bribe you with great content.
Let's go.
If you are new to the show, this is the Monty Show presented by our good friends at TryDayTrading.com. TryDayTrading.com. I'm telling you guys, if you didn't make $1,000 at work today, are you one of the people that's being forced to go into the office and it frustrates you? TryDayTrading.com/Monty. For $10, they're going to show you your future. And if your future in the next 12 months is not making $250,000 to $300,000 working for yourself at home on your own schedule, you're not doing it right. TryDayTrading.com.